period, or if we speak about the late Roman and Byzantine period, we start to see imagery of animals and human beings in Jewish art. Let me stop for a second and say now, just in case it's not clear to you, in Christianity and in Islam, there was a big debate because the second commandment, is it okay to have imagery? And what emerged from that big debate was two destructive waves of something called the iconoclastic movement, which took place in the 9th century, which swept through Islam and Christianity, destroying imagery. Guys, if you're a Muslim, how many of you guys have been to Hisham? Okay, the Hisham Palace. Do you have images there? Do you have images? Yes or no?
Yes.
1,000%.
Yes.
It's a Muslim structure. Yes. What I'm trying to tell you is, in early Islam, okay, and in Christianity at the same time, there's a big debate and struggle over whether it's okay or not to have images. When the dust settles at the end of the 9th century, Islam goes purist, no imagery. Christianity goes all the way to the left, full on icons, Madonnas, and everything, and Judaism takes a middle road. That's the situation till today. Till today. The caveat is, you find plenty of Baptist, Protestant denominations, North America, South America, their churches are clean of imagery, by the way. There are some Christian denominations that also are, their churches are clean. They have no Madonnas, they don't have crucifixes with Jesus hanging on the cross, and they don't have iconography. I'm not judging, I'm saying what is, guys. I'm not making any judgments about anybody here. Just you need to understand this, particularly when you're going to be guided. Back to the synagogue. Okay, we have a very interesting series of panels here. And it's difficult for you to make it out, but what we have here is starting from the bottom. Okay, by the way, through the window behind Owen, we're looking north. We're looking north, which means behind me is south. Okay, this way is what?
East.
East, that's west. Okay, so where's Jerusalem vis-a-vis where we are? East.
Behind us.
Guys, think about a map of Israel. This is not a trick question. We're in the lower Galilee. Where is Jerusalem?
South. South.
Thank you very much. And I said this way is south, right? Yeah. So is this synagogue oriented towards Jerusalem?
No.
Okay, thank you. Here's my point. Synagogues are oriented for a very long time towards the Holy Land, towards Jerusalem, and if you're in Jerusalem, towards the Temple Mount. But not throughout Jewish history, evidently. We have plenty of synagogues that are not oriented towards Jerusalem. It's going to be a later development. And evidently here, it's not accepted by all Jews at this moment in Jewish history. Some yes, some no. That's the first thing. So here we are right now, and we're on the eastern end, we said? Correct? Yes. Okay, eastern end. So at the bottom here, the eastern end, we have, this is a story from the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. The angels are visiting Abraham and Sarah. What are they going to tell Sarah?
She's going to have a baby.
She's going to have a baby. Remember, she's an older lady.
Yeah,
she's barren. Okay? She's going to have a child. Okay? Next one up, just above it. And we know because of the inscription here in ancient Greek, but also the iconography is very, very clear. This panel is the story of the binding of Isaac. Or excuse me if I speak Christian to you, the sacrifice of Isaac. Yes. Excuse me if I speak Islam to you, it's the sacrifice of Ishmael. Okay, I did that to you on purpose because this story, which is one of the most dramatic stories in human literature, of a father who is commanded by the one God to take the life of his son that he loves by his own hand. Those of us who are parents, we can't even imagine this nightmare. Okay? It's a very central, important story to the three monotheistic faiths.
Right.
To Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Even though each of them has a different view, okay, of what it means theologically. I don't have the time now, I realize, to talk about how the difference between how Judaism and Christianity and Islam view it. Even the location of the story has moved around geographically. So I don't know if this was said to you in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, but from a Christian perspective, the new Mount Moriah is in Golgotha, in Calvary. That's the new Mount Moriah.
Yeah.
Okay, the new place of the sacrifice. Okay, but here we have it Okay, we have here the binding, I'll speak Jewish, the binding of Isaac, not the sacrifice of Isaac from a Jewish perspective. And now above it, almost in the center here, we have the zodiac. I sent you an article that talks about this.
I didn't
Okay,
understand.
the zodiac itself, and what's in the heart of the zodiac, what you see
Sun.
here is a chariot, 4 horses, and what's riding the chariot is the sun and the moon next to it. There's the sun and the moon next to it, okay? Meaning the sun god and the moon god. Oops, in the synagogue. Okay, in the heart of the zodiac. And just in case we're not sure that we're looking at a synagogue, we have inscriptions here in Hebrew, giving us the seasons and giving us the names, both in Greek and in Hebrew. Both in Greek and in Hebrew. Somebody asked me about the Hellenistic impact. The fact that you have Greek inscriptions here in the synagogue is giving you a sense of the impact, the Hellenistic impact. But we have to say something, remind ourselves. There were 2 international languages here in antiquity. There were 2 international languages here in antiquity. The bigger one is ancient Greek. The smaller one is Aramaic. Aramaic. These are the 2 international languages in this region. Aramaic from here to the east, Greek east and west of here. So even when we're talking about a Roman period here, we found very, very few inscriptions in Latin in this country. Okay? Greek is the international language, like English is today, like French was 100 years ago, and Chinese is going to be another. Okay, you get the idea? Right? Stay with me.
Don't, please.
Sorry, we're all going to suffer from that. Okay, so this issue of how can you possibly have what is clearly a pagan iconography, and not just a synagogue. We found that at least 7 synagogues around the country. It was actually very common. Okay, evidently. Okay. And also, clearly having a pagan god here, this demands explanation. We'll get to that in a moment. Above it, what we're seeing here is a panel that relates directly to the sacrifices in the temple. And by the way, what's very nice is it also gives us here the inscriptions of different kinds of sacrificial, okay, lambs, bulls. We have the showbread. We have the horns here. Okay, we can see off the right here, these are things that can be brought, okay, first fruit, first produce to the temple. All of this is related to, okay, temple imagery. Above it, we're going to be having the consecration of Aaron, the brother of Moses, who was the first what? High priest. High priest. Okay? And probably, evidently, you're going to have, just above this, you're going to have some kind of ark, maybe, that's going to contain the Torah scroll. Okay, that you're going to open up and read over here. This is not basilical. Guys, this is not basilical.
No.
You know how you can tell it's, no. I'll say the sentence
not
again.
Basilica.
When I say basilica, guys, when I say basilica, you guys are in a guiding course. When I say basilical, I do not mean church. Basilica is a Roman structure.
Yes.
Where you have the courthouse, which will be used by early rabbinic Judaism and by the church for their synagogues and churches. Later in history, the basilica has the same identity of a specific type of a church.
With a name.
But most of the synagogues that we find around this country, you'll be visiting them, are basilical architecturally. And what that means is, you have, look at me guys, you have outside the entrance, you're going to have a kind of an entrance area called the narthex. And when you enter the main entrance, you'll have a nave, a central hall. It will be divided with columns. What you don't have here, you have only on one side, but not on this side. This is where the synagogue ends, guys. So this is not basilical. For this to be a basilica, you see what's your name, friend? Yossi. You see to the left of Yossi, you can see, okay, a passageway there, and it's divided from the nave, the central part, by a colonnade. For this to be basilical, as a synagogue, you'd have to have the same thing on this side. You don't. This is where it ends. Okay? You don't. So this is not a basilica, which is interesting because many of the synagogues from this period of time are basilical. Meaning having a nave, having the side aisles, and the far end, you have a semicircular niche, where in the synagogue, the apsis, where you're going to have the Torah scroll, or if it's a church, you're going to have the altar there. Okay, maybe a relic in front of and under the altar. Okay? So I'll say it again. Guys, unfortunately, as a course, you're not going to get into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. My Muslim friends, listen to me carefully. Close your eyes as I speak to you and imagine the Al-Aqsa Mosque. You have a narthex outside, right? Then you enter into a central hall, a nave. It's divided by columns into, right? And when you get to the far end, we have the mihrab. It's like an apse. Guys, it's a basilical shape architecturally. I didn't curse you. I'm telling you that architecturally, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is a basilical, architecturally a basilical structure. It's a massive basilical structure. Okay? This is why the great mosque in Ramle is built on a Crusader church, and it's
The Holy
you
Sepulchre,
can turn it into a mosque.
Nativity
Okay?
Church.
No problem. So anyway, the point is, this is not basilical. Now, I want to show you something interesting about the directions here. Take a look, especially you guys can't see this. Take a look at the two menorahs here. Look at the top, the wicks.
At the top?
The fire on top. Which direction are you going?
It's going the wing from the north
They're all
to the
going
south.
towards
To the south.
maybe Jerusalem. No, look at it again.
South.
So these are going the same direction. They're all going this way.
From the north to the south.
I'm sorry. They're all going
South.
maybe towards the direction of Jerusalem. I mean, the wrong direction. Is this a coincidence? It's kind of it's an interesting motif. It's as if the wind is blowing. Look at them. They're all bent south in the direction of Jerusalem. Do with that whatever you want. Okay? It's an interesting feature here. Don't know what to do with it.
I can't see it.
Aye.
You see a candelabra here? You don't see it, my friend. Stand up. 1, 2. Right over there. Don't you see 7? 1, 2, 3. 7 branches. Look. To the right. To the right. Don't you see the branches? Yes. That's a menorah. There's one over here as well. Look at the top of the cables are. They're pointing in this direction. Okay, guys. So one of the, let's say the most prominent, guys, sit down. The most prominent interpretation, we got to go soon. The most prominent interpretation of the meaning of this mosaic pavement or floor is the following. The title is From Promise to Redemption. From Promise to Redemption. What is the promise? Okay, we have the
promise of-
bottom part where the angels meet Sarah and Abram.
From promise to redemption.
Isaac. And then above it you have the the binding of Isaac. Okay? Where you know that God's going to promise Abraham to make him a great nation, like the stars in the heavens. Okay? So here we have it. The zodiac, in this interpretation, is speaking about God's control over the heavens, all the celestial bodies, the stars, the sun, the moon, the changing of the seasons, the weather. Guys, think about what is the most powerful thing we have even today. The most powerful force now,
sun.
natural force today.
The sun.
It's the weather. It's the heat. It's
Light.
tsunamis. God controls all of that.
Celestial
Okay.
bodies.
Celestial bodies means the sun, the moon, the stars. God controls. God created and God controls all of these things. Okay. Then we move up to all of this represents
The food.
future redemption. Guys, a Jewish, messianic, redemptive idea that when God is ready, he will bring a Messiah, Mashiach, and then the temple will be rebuilt in Jerusalem. That, and of course, there'll be world peace and everything else that happens with that. So from promise to redemption. This is one, guys, this is one prominent, significant interpretation of this mosaic floor. Okay? It has to be said, we find zodiacs in many synagogues from this period. This is from the 5th century CE, this period, I didn't mention before. Now, what you'll also find here is we find some very interesting parallels to churches around the world that also use very similar motifs at the same time, which is telling us two things. Number one, the fact that we see this in a synagogue, there's no question synagogue, means that the Jews who are majority here have a dialogue, a conversation, both with the pagans and with the Christians in this environment. They had become very much Romanized, Hellenized, the Jews here. That's number one. It's very, very clear. Number two, there's evidently some kind of quiet, maybe secret dialogue between Christianity and Judaism about the significance and meanings, because, of course, in the church, the redemption is not going to be, it's going to be a different redemption. Jesus comes back again. Okay? So you find similar motifs in churches in the same period of time, artistically, okay? But yet, different interpretation. Okay, you guys with me? Okay. To summarize. You go to Masada, you're going to see a synagogue. If you can get there when it's not, the sun's not beating on your head and you have the time. Again, what does the Knesset mean? When does this institution appear in Jewish history? What is its function when we have the temple? What is its function after the temple? What is the function of the synagogue after the destruction of the temple? Okay? It is not just a place of worship. Like churches and mosques, it builds communities, guys. If in Judaism, in mainstream Judaism, until 5 minutes ago, you had to have a minimum of 10 men to have a minyan or a quorum, to have public prayer. 10 men means 10 families. That's how you build a community. People who are religious people, who who go to a specific mosque, or a specific church, or a specific synagogue, that's your community. It's one of your communities. You have friends who also go there. Sometimes you break bread with them before or after, right? In other words, synagogues and churches and mosques will also build community. They build community around religious ideas, but they build community. Okay? And this is a way when Jews are not allowed to rebuild the temple and sacrifice is removed from Jewish practice. This is one of the ways to continue Judaism. Okay? One last thing which I have to say now, because it's critical for other things you're going to guide. Last thing, and I'll take questions and we'll move. In Judaism, bringing sacrifice. One of the purposes of bringing sacrifice to God is to expiate, deal with your sins. And different sins demand different kinds of sacrifice. Okay? Once the temple is destroyed in 70 CE, you do not have a rebuilding of the temple, and sacrifice disappears from Judaism. A relevant question at this moment would be, so what do Jews do to expiate their sins when there's no longer sacrifice? I'm glad you asked that question. Okay? The answer is that the formula that was created in Judaism was the following. 3 things together replace sacrifice. Number 1, proactively doing good deeds. Lut Chasidim. Proactively doing good deeds. Number 2, intense prayer. Number 3, reading and studying the Torah. These 3 taken together replace sacrifice to expiate sins. This is important because if you're with Christian groups, in Christianity the formula is getting the grace of God or getting the grace of Jesus. And if you want to explain to them, so how does it work in Judaism after 70? I just gave you the answer. Yes, sir, your question. Yes, sir.